Hello, everyone. It's nice to see all of you all join the session. We will begin shortly. In the meantime, feel free to use the chat box and let us know your name, where you're coming from, and how excited are you for the session. Please let me know if you're able to use the chat box and go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Asna.
Yes.
Yeah, good morning, Upasna.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you? Good morning, Diana.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Nariman.
Hi, Nariman. Good morning.
Good morning, Mariana.
Good morning, Nariman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
This is Wiham.
Good morning, everyone. This is Nabil.
Good morning, Nabil.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Danushka from Sri Lanka.
Good morning. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank
Good morning, everyone. This is Azay.
Morning.
Morning. It is amazing to have so many joining on time. It's so exciting. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, this is Ismay. I'm from South Africa.
Morning. Right. So we can begin the session. So hello, inquisitive minds and enthusiastic learners. Welcome to another interesting Ignite session by Westwood for Business. For those who are joining our session for the first time, let me introduce myself. I'm Upasna Nambia, Training Coordinator at Westwood for Business and your host for the day. And let me also quickly brief you on WFB Ignite. This is a series of online workshops and webinars organized by Westwood for Business. These sessions aim to provide virtual training solutions to bridge the competency gaps within organizations in the best way possible, primarily to address critical issues within organizational context through professional development programs. WFB Ignite sessions are designed to be relevant and responsive to the current business trends and business needs around the world. These sessions are led by WFB trainers who are professionals and consultants with years of industry experience. Moving on to today's WFB Ignite session, which is on leading the narrative, mastering the art of storytelling for strategic leadership. And the session is facilitated by none other than Miss Mariana. A little bit about Miss Mariana. Miss Mariana is a business leader, best-selling author, and TEDx speaker focused on mothers in leadership. With a career at IBM, Intel, and McKinsey, she has driven significant organizational change. Her memoir, That Suburbia Lady, explores identity and has been recognized by the Mohammed bin Rashid Library. Currently, she is conducting doctoral research on supporting mothers in leadership. Mariana's expertise in diversity and inclusion has established her as a respected authority in these areas. So before I hand over the session to Ms. Mariana, I would like to remind you all to feel free to send in your comments, suggestions, and feedback over the chat box. And you may post your session-related questions under the Q&A segment down below. So, without further ado, let me please invite Miss Mariana to kickstart this exciting session on leading with narrative, mastering the art of storytelling for strategic leadership. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Afasana, for that beautiful introduction and for setting the stage for what I'm hoping to be an exciting and educational event that we're going to have today. Thank you, everyone, for joining from around not only just UAE. I heard South Africa, I heard Sri Lanka. Now, before I start, I would like to test the raise your hand option, because this is going to be an interactive session, and I would like you all to encourage kids to get a pen and paper, because you will be needing those. So I'll give you a few minutes to get a pen and paper, and if I can ask a few of the participants to raise their hands to see if that option is working with us. Wiham, Petero, can you raise your hand? I want to see. Yes, perfect. So you can use the raise your hand option if you would like to interject, make a comment, or if you want to participate in one of the many activities we have today. I hope by now everyone has a piece, a paper and a pen and ready to start. So, as Aparsana said, what are we going to discuss today? Very straightforward. We're going to go down to the deep dive and say why storytelling matters for leaders. And what is a story? Because every time I tell someone I'm a storyteller, they go out and they say, oh my God, Mariana, you're going to start telling us once upon a time, and you're going to talk about fairy tales and times past. Unfortunately, I do start my stories with once upon a time, but usually it's once upon a time a Costa, because I'm known as the Costa lady, or once upon a time Enzo, who is my son. But my stories are not fairy tales, and we will go deep dive and see what is a story and how can we use it as a leadership tool. But most importantly, after we find out what a story is, we're gonna learn together how to write that story. And I'm going to share with you a bulletproof formula for you to be able to craft a story anytime, anywhere. Now, let's start with the basic first. You can raise your hand to answer this question. I want to get a feel about the crowd today, because I saw the list and we have a quite diverse crowd with us today, quite diverse list of participants. And I want to ask you, just to get a feel, your experience with storytelling within the business environment. Anyone has used storytelling before? Anyone would like to share with us a story he or she uses to maybe motivate the team? A story, even a story to introduce yourself. Usually when you're in a room and you enter a room and someone asks you, would anyone like to share a story? Or am I to assume that we are all here to learn how to become storytellers and we don't have the knowledge yet to go with to craft our stories? Okay, see, I don't see any raised hands. I'm gonna move, but I'm gonna tell you that by the end of the session, you will all be eager to share those stories within your business context. So in about 45 minutes, I'm gonna see a lot of hands raised. I'm that positive and that optimistic. So to get warm up, I'm gonna ask you please all to ready your papers and your pencil and draw me a house. So I'm gonna give you, can I have a thumbs up from everyone who has a house, who has a paper and a pen and ready to draw the house? Please, if I can have a thumbs up to set the timer, I'm gonna give you a few minutes to draw your house. I don't see any thumbs up, so hopefully you can hear me. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so can I have people raising their hands to show me that you can hear me? Because I can't see you, but you can see me. Can I have a round of raising hands that you are ready to draw your house for me? Perfect. I see Patrick, I see Samuel, Nabil, Ravinder. Amazing, amazing. Okay, so you don't have to overthink about this. Just draw me a house, please. I'll give you 3 minutes to draw a house, and after 3 minutes, we will all share the houses that we draw.
I think there is some glitch. We'll just wait for 2 minutes.
Okay, what happened? They left the room?
Okay, no, it's all perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Excuse me, can you see when we raise our hands, or was I raising the hands, but I didn't get any reply, so I'm not sure if you saw it or not.
I used to see it. Right now, I don't see it. If you have any questions, type it in the chat box and Aparsana will raise your question.
Sorry, I think the chat box is
That is
disabled.
disabled, by the way, yeah. That's the point.
We will try and enable it now. Thank you for letting us know. We will do it in some time.
Thank you.
Okay, I can see the raised hands now. Thank you, Esme, Nariman, Yohani. I hope everyone is busy with their houses. We'll share it in 1 minute. I can actually hear drawing sounds. Okay, are you ready, everyone? Can you see my screen? Okay, I'm gonna ask Nitin, the Zoom master, to enable everyone's video just for a minute. And I want everyone to hold up their house drawing in front of the camera so we can all see those beautiful houses that you were drawing. Okay. Perfect. Come on, hold up your house pictures one by one, and then we'll figure out what was this exercise about. Wiham, can you go closer? I want to see your house a bit more. Move to there you go. Perfect, perfect. Can everyone see Wiham's house? I want more houses, please. Beautiful. Anyone else? Come on, people. This is a beautiful picture. If you show me your house, I will tell you why I asked you to do this, and then it's all gonna make sense, and you're gonna go, ah. Okay. Let's move on. I think many people are shy to show their houses. But since we saw Wiham and Esme's house, oh, Diana, beautiful. Can you move it a bit closer? So we have Diana, Esme, Wiham's houses. Wiham, can you hold up your house to the camera? I want the attendees to see the house that you drew. A bit closer. Okay, a bit closer. Now, what do you notice in these houses? I have done this exercise with adults, and I have done this exercise. Thank you, everyone. And I have done this exercise with children. And this exercise shows the power. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nariman. I can see it. Thank you. So this exercise, as I was saying, I have done it with adults and I have done it with grown-ups, with children. And what this exercise show us, I don't know if you have, what you have noticed. 1 minute, I lost. Can you all see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I
Yes,
lost.
yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. So what this exercise show, if you have seen the 4 houses shared, they look quite similar, don't they? They all have this tiled, what is the shape? Triangle roof. They all have a door and they all have the square windows. But when I do this exercise with children, the children draw round houses, they draw horizontal, vertical houses. So each house of the children look the same, but for the adults, all our houses look the same. And this tells me one more thing. The house exercise shows us one point, is that our house is like our story. So when we tell a story, we want our stories to be different, just like we want our houses to be different. So if I walk into a room, I will be able to identify that this specific house was drawn by Zena, or this specific house was exactly drawn by Ravi, and that specific story was told by Rula, or that specific story was told by Ahmad. If all our houses look the same and all our stories sound the same, that we are all the same person. But the power of storytelling is that we each can draw. We have the power to draw our different houses. So when we are in a room, our stories will represent us and no one else. So when we switch stories, when we switch houses, they will know this is not Zaina's house, this is Diana's house. This is not Ahmed's story, this is Ravinder's story. So do you know then why storytelling matters for leaders? Before I say that, first of all, I think we need to start by saying, what is a leader, right? Because if we're saying that storytelling and stories are tools for leaderships, but what is the role of the leader? And in that case, why does he need to use these stories? So do you agree or disagree? Is a leader a title? You can unmute and speak. This is interactive session. Is a leader a title? Is a leader a to-do list?
No, it's not a title, in my opinion. It's a practice or an inspirational role for someone within his or her environment.
Exactly. One of my best things, one of my professors was telling me is that a manager is hired. So a manager is promoted. A manager has a title. A manager has a role. A manager, he waits to be or she waits to be promoted. But a leader is not a title. A leader cannot be promoted. A leader presents himself or herself. A leader is in a room, in any room. So the leader job is not to say what to do and how to do. As you said, a leader is there to lead a team, to listen, to inspire, to fail and also learn. The leader is there to guide others. So this is very important. The role of stories in the leadership job is for stories to help do all this, to guide a team, to inspire, to motivate, to show them the vision of the future, and to guide them to success. So this is so that I can showcase the point that I was trying to make between a leader and not a leader, and how stories can play a role in a leader or in a manager's job. These are 2 examples of real life emails sent by real life CEOs. I'm not sure if you're aware of these emails. I like to read the CEOs' emails. Usually they publish them in Inc. or Forbes. So these are real emails. The first email said, the CEO in the email said, we need to think big. We need to transform. We need to do it all together. Now, the second CEO of the other company wrote a longer email explaining, who am I? And then going on to say, why am I here? And then continuing, why are we here? and what do we do next? So which email tone tinkles your heart and soul? Even when I read it, if you see, my voice changed. So which email is written by a leader, in your opinion, and which email is written by someone who tells you what to do? A leader, this is one of my favorite quotes, a leader plants a tree who he knows he will not sit under, which means a leader creates a vision and guides people to that vision. So which email? Come on, people, I need more.
The second one.
Which email you will be inspired to read? Let's say this is the CEO of your company. A new CEO comes to your company and he sends an email and he says, we need to think big, we need to transform, we need to do it all together. Thank you. And then he leaves. But then another director joined the company and he takes the time to send you an email to explain who he is, where he comes from, what are his hobbies, why is he here, what is he trying to achieve, and how he will get you to become successful with him and take you along the journey. Which email?
The second one.
The second one.
Second.
Why
I'll
the
do the second one.
I cannot see who's speaking, unfortunately. I don't know why I cannot see who's speaking. But if you can tell your name so I can address you by your name. Why will the second one inspire you? Why will the second email entice you to take action? Or why would the second email entice you to believe in the vision of the CEO?
This is Patrick here.
Hi, Patrick.
The second one gives rapport. It settles you in and almost makes you a friend in terms of the communication.
Yes, exactly. You got it. He is talking to you as if you know him and he knows you, right? He's trying to get you closer to him. He's opening up the communication. Excellent. And the second email will get you to believe in him. Now, I'm gonna...
Sharing his stories.
Yes, exactly. He's connecting with the stories. He's telling you who he is. My name is Dir. I was born. I have a family. My hobbies. He's becoming a person and not a title. The first email shows a title because when a CEO comes as a title and not as a leader, he would ask you to do things. But when a CEO, a director, or let's just say a leader comes as a storyteller and a really leader, he tells you stories. So he gets you to believe in him and trust him. Excellent. Thank you. Now, let me prove this, or let me showcase this to you, because I am here today, as Upasana said in her introduction, I am here today to talk to you about storytelling for leaders. So how did the credentials that Upasana read about me, how did she prove that I am a storyteller? Because if I am to teach you storytelling, it means I am a storyteller myself. And if I am to talk about storytelling for leaders, it means I am a leader myself. And it means I have been a corporate superstar. So I'm sorry why I can't see the video, so I can't see your reaction. So I'm gonna tell you two stories now, and then we're gonna talk about them. The first one, I'm gonna introduce myself to you and see which person you will trust, okay? And as I'm telling these stories in your head, ask yourself, is she a storyteller? Is she a corporate superstar? Is she a leader? So I can introduce myself by saying, hi, everyone, my name is Mariana. I came to Dubai 26 years ago. I started working in IT. I worked for 15 years. I worked really, really hard. I became very, very successful. And now I deserve to be here to tell you all about the success and how I achieved it using stories. How did that story make you feel? Do you believe me? I'm a storyteller when I said these? Do you trust me to be a leader because I said I was very successful?
There is no real connection when you're telling this story.
If not Mariana is telling the story, let's say Diana is telling the story, would you be able to Notice the difference if it was Diana or Mariana. Is there anything in here that says this is Mariana? No, this story can be used by, exactly, this story can be used by anyone. Anyone can claim all these things. Anyone can claim that came to Dubai 26 years ago. He worked in IT and he was very successful. Now, what if I tell you, I came to Dubai in 1998. I came to work. I looked around and I saw everyone who was driving expensive cars were working in IT. And I said, you know what? I'm going to work in IT because I want to drive an expensive car. I didn't know anything about IT. So on my first day at Intel, I go to my office, to my manager's office, and I leave a post-it note on her desk. I tell her I'm off to crack open a desktop because I didn't know how desktop works. I didn't know how IT works. I just wanted to work in IT. So for the first week, I went to our distributors' offices and I opened every single computer I could get my hands on. Why? Because Intel made CPU chips, if you know, and the CPU is embedded in the desktop. So for me, I had to see it. I had to feel it. I had to touch it. I had to experience what a CPU does if I was to sell this piece of equipment. But guess what? The week after that, I went again to our distributor's office. But this time I said, give me a desktop that has our competitor's CPU. Because then I wanted to see what was the difference between our CPU and their CPU, how it felt different, how it used to be different. The third week, I went to Al Fahidi Street. If you are aware, if you live in Dubai, Al Fahidi is the street where all the computer shops are. The third week on my job, I went to Al Fahidi Street and I spent 8 hours a day for 2 weeks talking to each vendor, talking to each customer, trying to understand how they used our machine, how they used our CPU, our desktop. I wanted to understand how I can make our products better for them. By the end of that first year, I overachieved my target by 200%. I worked for 15 years. I changed 9 jobs, 5 industries. I won the best achievement award in every company I had and every job I had. During those years, I never chased fame, success, or money. But fame, success, and money found me because I was chasing knowledge, skills, and lessons. So now tell me, how is that story different from the first story? And if there's anyone else who can tell the story beside me?
Yeah.
Your story
Sorry,
is...
sorry.
Well, hello. Hello.
Yes.
My name is Daniel Blackburn. I believe it is a successful story.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I believe it is a successful story.
Okay.
What was I think it is the authenticity of the story. You can visualize what is being told, and you think it can also be done.
There you go. There you go. There you go. You can visualize it. Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you. We will come back to that. What else? What was the difference between the first story and the second story? And the second story, did I show you that I'm a storyteller?
There is no passion in the first story. There is no details. In the second story, you went through a lot of details that only you can tell. No one else can tell these details because you lived that.
Exactly, exactly. So when we are telling stories, so when we are talking about stories, we don't want to say, I came, I saw, I conquered. Because a very popular story, especially in Dubai, is when we introduce ourselves, we say, I came to Dubai, I've been here for 15 years, I work in IT, I'm an engineer, and that's it. But is that memorable? Is that creating an impact? Remember, we are using now storytellers for leadership. And the role of leadership, or the duty of the leadership, is to inspire. And like the gentleman said, to create images in your head. And how do we create images? How do we get buy-ins? By opening up, by telling stories that no one else can say. And this is so important. We want to tell stories that no one else can say, that no one else can tell, because no one lived our experience. We want to draw a house that only us can draw, because it's based on our experience, our culture, our failures, our successes. And as we go through today, you will know how to do that. Slowly, I will tell you this. Now, I want you to try this.
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yes. I wanted to say that the second story, a more specific, and you own the story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful and a powerful, powerful word that you said. The first powerful word was visual. The second powerful word was own. Because the first story, it can be anybody's story, right? But the second story, it can only be mine. And when we tell stories, and I will illustrate this later on, when we tell stories that is ours, the listener can feel the passion. The listener, the audience, our team can feel our authenticity, our vulnerability, because we can feel the story as we are telling it. And that's how they trust us. But if I say, I came 26 years ago to Dubai, I worked with very big companies, I'm very successful, now you do as I tell you to do because I'm successful, will that work? I'm sure in your line of work, you have people who say that. You have managers, leaders, or team leaders who say that. But that's not what we are here. What we are here is to use the secret power of stories to motivate, to inspire. But I want you to try it. I want a volunteer, please, to try to tell me about your first job and your journey to success in 1 minute story based on the short story that I shared with you. Now, remember, this is very important. I'm not asking you really to tell me about the nitty-gritty of your job. I'm not asking you to tell me what you do in your job, what is your title, how you spend your day. When I ask you, what do you do? In my mind, or in the audience mind, or in the asker mind, we are trying to decide if we trust you, especially as a leader. We are trying in our mind to decide if we trust you, if you are being authentic, if you are who you say you are. And like it was mentioned, is your story creating a visual in our head? And do you own that story? Is it yours, or did you borrow it from someone else? If I can have maybe one volunteer to try it, I will keep my story as a sample. Do we have anyone? I'm sorry, I really can't see the attendees. Somehow my video is disabled.
Yes, I think we have one hand raised.
Okay.
Mr. Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Ben.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Ben Ojuka. So in a 1 minute summary of my story about my journey, I came to Dubai in 2012. I came as a general cleaner. My job then was to do cleaning at Dubai International Airport. But my main goal was to one day hold a PhD or a doctoral degree in any field that of my choosing. The journey started when I stepped the first day I stepped into Dubai International Airport, and what I saw changed my mind because I saw a lot of opportunities. I got confused about where to actually take the step to proceed, because there was a lot of industries. There was aviation, there was technology, there was logistics. The closest and proximity to me was logistics. So I decided to take courses in logistics and supply chain management and grew into a logistics assistant, and progressively I managed to somehow pave my way into Westford University, where I did my MBA in logistics, and currently, taking a doctoral degree in operations and supply chain management. Being a lead, this all has inspired me to be a leader in my society, to give back in different ways. Currently, I'm running a foundation whereby I'm helping other people to see that they can also do it, because if I grew from being a cleaner to the level that I am now, that means that everyone can do it. So giving back to the society, this has inspired me to be in an area where I'm giving back to the society and trying to help people to know that, if I did it, then if I did it, and if I'm still doing it, I'm still trying to push forward, then everyone can. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for that beautiful story. You got me hooked from the start. Now, I'm going to open
Extremely inspiring, really,
Yes.
Mariana.
Please let everyone have a say. When Ben was speaking, did you visualize it? Did your heart tinkle? Did your soul was filled with hope? Would you follow this man to his foundation?
Yes.
Yes. Well, would anyone else be able to tell the story? No, only Ben can tell the story, and you could feel it in his voice. So why storytelling matters for leaders? If we want to talk about the science, and I don't want to talk about the science, but actually when we hear stories, our brain lights up. We are creatures who thrive on storytelling. So when someone, we could all smile, I think, listening to Ben's story. Is that right? Because I was smiling, and I am assuming that everyone was smiling too. Stories create chemical reaction in our brains, and that chemical reaction goes to our heart, our soul. But behind the science talk and the chemical reaction, stories matter because stories ignite change. I always say if data changed behavior, I would always be skinny. Data doesn't change behavior. So if we stand and say my story is that I came to Dubai 26 years ago, I'm very successful, I have a big house, these are data, I have a big car, I drive a BMW, I have 50 people reporting to me, I work for a company that makes $50 billion. These are data. They are very dry, very harsh. What are these data doing to me? Nothing. Stories, feelings, emotions that drive behavior, not data. So now, what is a story anyway? What is a story? A story is not a resume. And this is, if you want to leave with something today, please leave with this slide. Let this slide, remember this slide, because I'm sure a lot of you are on LinkedIn, if not most of you, and storytelling now is very sexy, if I can say that. Most of everyone on LinkedIn now claim, or they put in the title, they are storytellers. And then, of course, I see what they write on LinkedIn, I see what they post, I see the videos they post, and I can't but laugh. This is very important. A story is not a resume. It's not, I came, I saw, I conquered. It's not, I came from Lebanon, I'm 44 years old. I've been here for, that's me. I've been here for 26 years. I had 5 jobs. I have a son. I failed a lot in my life, but I have risen despite of the failure. Now I am stronger than ever. Do you feel, is your heart resonating when I'm saying this? No. It has no emotions, no details. This is not me. Anyone can claim it. So a story is not a chronological list of events. And this is something very familiar, very popular. People, when they write their story in a chronological event, I was born, I was raised, my mother, I went to school, I came to Dubai, I got my first job, then my second job, then my third job. That is not a story. A story is not, I did this, I did that. A story is not, because I did this, you do that. That's not a story. A story first and foremost, it's yours, which means that no one else can tell that story. No one else except you. The second most important thing is that a story needs to be true, 100% true. But what follows next is even more important. A story must be told in a minimalist fashion. When I said I came to Dubai in 1998 and I saw who was driving the most expensive cars, and that was IT. That's it. The message was given in the least amount of details. I did not say when I came to Dubai, it was hot, I was looking for a job, I applied for 50 jobs, I went from a recruiter to recruiter, every job interview made me stronger, no. Because those details are not relevant to the point I am trying to make. The point I was trying to make in my story is show you that I was a successful business person. I am a good storyteller and an inspirational leader. The number of times I went for an interview is irrelevant in the message I am trying to relate in that story. This is very important. The second most important thing, that the story needs to have a positive tone. The story cannot end on a negative tone. I'm talking about leadership story. The positive tone, like Ben's story. He is doing his DBA. He is doing his foundation. He started it ends on a positive note. A story, I forgot to mention that in order to be true, you need to mention the where, the what, the why, the when, and why. These are very important because in 1998, I came to Dubai. When did Ben come to Dubai? He mentioned it. It's important. In 1998, I came to Dubai. I worked for 15 years. I worked at Intel. These specific details are very important in the story because they create relevance, and they create in the brain of the listener that she's telling the truth. This is true. That is true. And in 1998, it was the boom of the IT. She was right. Everyone who was working in IT was indeed driving the best cars. So we need to give just enough details to ignite in the listener's mind that it is true. And the more true your story is, the more it resonates, the more it impacts, and the more it drives commitment, and the more it inspires. Again, a story has a resolution that offers transformation. You need to have grown as when you're telling the story. So Ben's story, he came as a cleaner, he grew, he transformed not only to a leader, but he transformed to a player in the community. He wants to give back to a community. This transformation is especially important at what makes a story and not what makes a resume. The transformation of the person who is telling the story, an internal growth, an aha moment. And someone mentions it, a story engages the imagination. When someone is telling the story, we're already imagining it. We can see it in our head. I came to Dubai 26 years ago. I worked in 10 jobs. What do you see? Nothing. Is everything clear? Do you have any questions? So,
yes.
Yes, please.
Can we say story is a milestone targeted at achieving a goal?
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. Can you say that again?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. What I was saying is that a story is a milestone process that is targeted at achieving a goal.
Yes, we will go there. Exactly. That's why I said when you write the story, you need first to decide, am I trying to motivate my team? Am I trying to get them to trust me? Am I trying to lead a change initiative? Which detail in my story matters for that objective? Because each story is told very consciously. We don't tell stories to entertain. That is not true. So a leader does not tell a story to make people laugh. A leader, that's an entertainer job. A leader uses a story to achieve a certain goal, just like the gentleman said. And before you tell the story, you need to decide, what is the goal? Am I trying to get them to trust me? Am I trying to get the team to believe that I am capable of this leadership position, of the CEO position? Am I trying to get the team motivated to work together? Am I trying to get them to buy in my vision? And according to the objective, then you start putting in the details and the story that matter the most. And moving on, we will see how we do that exactly. This is extremely, again, another important point. When we tell a story, we are not actually trying to convince someone. When Ben told the story, he did not try to convince me to do a DBA. He did not try to convince me to start a foundation. He didn't even try to convince me to join his foundation or support his foundation. And this is something I see a lot of people do when they're trying to tell their story. They're trying to impose the point. A very important rule in writing and public speaking is that never underestimate the, I'm sorry, I'm losing words, the capability of your listener to come up to the conclusion. Because what your story needs to do, it needs to create, it needs to light up something inside the listener. The listener is not waiting for your story to give him a solution. That's not the role of the story. That's the role of a manager. Do this, do that, go here, do this. The role of the story, and hence the role of the leader, is to let an idea born in your mind and to let the listener come up with his own conclusion and to think and to let the listener think that this was his idea. Your stories are creating seeds, are planting seeds in someone's head. And how will you know it worked? Because you will hear everyone repeating your story from room to room, from meeting to meeting, from place to place. So as you're telling the story, remember, this data is after analyzing more than 1,000 TEDx talk. They realized the most impactful TEDx talks, hence the most impactful speeches, the most impactful stories are made up 65% of personal stories. So when we are talking to our team, when we are out there doing our public speaking, or when we are out there in a panel, it's very easy to be driven with data because we want to show that we know the topic. We want to show that we understand the topic. Aparsana said that I am a D&I expert. So it's very easy for me to go on a panel and say all the statistics when it comes to diversity and inclusion, about women hiring, about the quotas, about that. But if I am able to do that, someone else will come and do the same thing because data is available on Google. And if I am able to Google the data, someone else will enable Google the data. Even the listeners will Google the data. Our job as leaders, as storytellers, as panelists, as public speakers is not to relate the data. Our job is to tell our story. 25% data, 10% background story, that's fine. It will get at the credibility. But our role is to tell stories. Before we go and see where we can find these stories, because that's why we're here for, and how we write these stories, does anyone else want to give it a go, want to try to tell their story based on what we have covered so far? You can use any of the scenarios on this slide, or you can do a scenario of your own. It depends where you see the need of your stories in your work environment now or in your job contexts. Anyone has their hand raised? Apasana?
Yes, we have one. Miss Vihim.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Actually, I earlier raised my hand just to ask something. It's not related to my story. Not ready yet to do storytelling. I just wanted to ask, so we consider it a story, or you can tell the story only if it is successful. So you cannot tell, yeah, I did this and this and this, and at the end it doesn't end well. Then you cannot consider it a story, right?
Yes, because you are telling the story as a leader. You are using these stories as a tool. So in order for you to be in that leadership position, which is to motivate, to engage, to inspire, to drive your team or to drive your audience, you need to end it on a personal note, because the positive tone will make them believe that you have done this before. And if you have done this before, it means you can do it again, and they can trust you to do it again. But if you end the story as a leader on a negative note, they will say, okay, she hasn't done it before. She wants to try to do it with us. Then why do I trust her to do it with her? Your story needs to demonstrate a transformation, that you went through such a horrible time, a specific horrible time, not all the horrible times you went through, one specific bad incident. You will showcase that, and then you will show the transformation. How did you overcome that failure, and how did you transform it and yourself and end it on a positive note? And there you have the buy-ins, when you end it on a positive note.
All right.
Because remember, why are we using these stories? We are not using these stories to entertain. We are not using these stories to make a point. As leaders, we are using these stories to drive action.
Correct.
Thank you. Anyone would like to, most welcome. Anyone would like to go ahead? It can be a very short story, 30 seconds. The easiest ones usually are, why did you come to Dubai? But okay, let's move on then. Now, this is, where do we find those stories? So now we know how to use these stories and why to use these stories as the leaders, and why it's so important for us to tell stories and not to-do lists and not chronological lists. But where do we find these stories? Please, please, please do not Google. Please do not Google stories of failure, stories to motivate. All your stories are within you, inside you. Remember your house. You want your stories to look like you, feel like you, smell like you. This is another exercise. I think we're running out of time. We may not be able to do it, but I will encourage you to do this. This is how all stories start. We have the me illustration, and this is my me illustration. Actually, this is actually what I did to come up with our stories. What you do is that, and this will take time, patience, practice. But you need to decide what are the things that matter to you and what are the subjects that you can use for your stories. Because as you can see in my me illustration, I have put so many things over there. I have put my friends, I have put my hobbies, my role as a wife, as a mother, my values. Now I started running, I drink coffee. You can put so many things in the me illustration that it's around your life. But at the end, you will need to choose 3 things maximum. You could choose 1, you could choose 2, but 3 maximum. What do I mean by that? I mean that you either choose your role as a parent. Let's say for me, for example, I choose the 3 areas where I tell stories the most are my love for coffee. Everyone knows I'm a Costa coffee lover. So I have a lot of my stories that are around coffee stories. I have, of course, my son. I have a lot of stories with my son. And I have a lot of stories now. I am training for a marathon. I choose stories of running. So I tell them stories about how I train, where I train, when I train, and all the lessons and all that. So I advise you to do this me illustration. This is where you will find your stories. Scribble on a piece of paper. Who are you? Who is your community? What are the things you're involved? What are the things that make you, you? And choose 3 things that you can craft your stories around. Remember, people will remember you for your stories. So if you start telling stories about your running, if I start telling stories about everything that I do in my life, it's too big. Our attention span will not cover that. and at the end you want to be known for something. For example, when I enter a room, people always tell me, oh, you're that mom lady. Oh, you're that Costa lady. How is Enzo, my son? These are the three things people always mention to me when they see me, because these are the three things I always talk about, or my stories, as I always around these three topics. Now, because I am training for a marathon, I have a lot of stories around running. But after 1 year, after I finish my marathon, maybe there is no need for me to talk about my running anymore. So I will come up with something else. Now, I will share with you a funny story. I was giving this training a few months ago, actually, and there was a VP in the audience, and he said, Mariana, I'm a VP. I have a team of 50 who follow me. Are you actually asking me to tell them stories about my wife? Do you think that's appropriate? Now, yes, I encourage you to talk about personal stories, but I'm not saying you have to talk about your wife. For example, I never talk about my husband because that's not relevant to the message that I'm trying to say. I talk about my son, I talk about coffee, I talk about that. So you choose what you want to talk about. But on the other hand, I know a lot of leaders who talk about their family. The choice is yours and the decision is yours. For example, my husband, he tells war stories. So my husband was born and raised in wartime. He has seen horrible days. He had a horrible childhood in war. So when he tends to tell stories, all his stories are war stories. For example, do you see the plane to your right? This is a very famous war story. Is anyone familiar with this story? The story goes, it was, I think, during the First World War. These were English planes coming back, and the red dots are where they would be hit. So they would be hit and the plane will fall down. And scientists would study these bullet holes to discover why is the plane being hit there? And when it's being hit there, why is it falling down? They wanted to make it stronger, let's say. Until one day, a scientist said, we're looking at it the wrong way. We should not look where the bullets hit the plane because that's the weakest link. We should look where the plane wasn't hit. And that's the strong place, which means we can reinforce the plane the same as the other places weren't hit. Now, someone mentioned earlier that the story I was telling was my own. Now, the story I just told about the plane wasn't my own. Did you notice how my voice changed? Was I able to convince you about this plane story? I'm telling a story that's not my own. Did you see the difference of when I was telling a story that was my own? How that changed you? And now a story that it wasn't my own. I'm trying so hard to tell the story. Could you see the difference?
The emotional attachment is not there when you are telling a story which is not yours.
Exactly. Although the story is a beautiful story about how to look for solutions, how to look at the problem. It's a beautiful leadership story, but the story is not mine because I haven't lived the war that my husband lived. This is not relevant to me. So if you don't want to talk about personal stories, if you don't want to talk about, family stories, if you don't want to talk about your hobbies, you can find something that is true to you, but still not personal. And that all depends of our nature, who we are, our authenticity, how much we want to share. And of course, I put there biographies and memoirs. You can read these stories, and whatever sounds true to you, you need to share. You cannot, for example, I cannot share Elon Musk's story. I do not see his vision, and hence I cannot share his story. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, now that we know why we need stories, and then we know where to find these stories, now we're going to learn how to write these stories. Remember, we said eliminate unnecessary details. End it on a positive note. Show a transformation. This is the formula to follow to write a story that will impact, a story that will motivate, and a leadership story that will inspire. This is the story spine. It starts with once there was a everyday you, until one day. This is where the problem happens. This is when Ben realized, I want a different life for myself. I want something different. And because of that, Ben went and pursued education. He did his MBA. And because of that, Ben pursued his DBA until finally he did his foundation. And ever since then, he has been helping his community. Do you see how the story goes up and down and how it ends on a positive note? Whatever story you want to write, after you've done your me illustration, after you know which areas of your life you want to talk about stories, you put them all in this sequence. Once there was I came to Dubai, I didn't have a job. Every day I went looking for a job until one day a manager called me. Because of that, I worked very hard. But insert your details. This is mine, just to give you an illustration of how it goes. Of course, when you're telling your story to your team, you don't have a say on a time. Yes?
Sorry? I
Yes?
cannot see except your, I cannot see what you're trying to share, basically. I can't see you.
Does anyone?
Me also, actually. I just send a message. I'm not able to see the presentation. There is no presentation. There is only you. So maybe there is something wrong in that.
Okay, one minute. Can you see now?
Yeah, now it's it comes
my
in.
God. Oh my God.
Yes,
Okay, I'm so
now
sorry.
it's okay.
We shared so much. Okay, we'll go back. Thank you for that, because I wasn't able to see. Okay, so this is the plane I was talking to you about. Just for you to know, the red bullets, but you will have a copy of this presentation. Did I visualize? This is the me illustration I was talking to you about. So the me illustration is just a random illustration. You put yourself in the middle and then you cover all the things that make up your life. And then you start eliminating, but visualize it. Oh my God, thank you for that. And this is the story spine. So it starts from a top, goes to the bottom, and then there's a top. So it's a curvy way. And by the way, all the movies are based on this story spine, the Star Wars, any movie you want, Spider-Man. Now I'm watching a lot of Marvels because of my son. But any story, any movie you pick, they use this. This is the most famous way to craft a story. It's called a story spine. So if we go back to my story, I will ask you now to share yours as well. This is how it goes. And as I said, you don't have to use once upon a time. It will come automatically. But just for an exercise, a few first times you will use this, so to make sure that you're following the story spine. So once upon a time, there was a job-driven high achiever, 30-year-old woman. That was me. Every day, she would go to work to close the next big deal and see her name in shining light. Until one day, she became a mom. Because of that, she decided to stop working. Because of that, she lost her identity, until finally she realized this was his opportunity to free herself from society's outdated success parameters. Ever since then, she acknowledges that who she is has nothing to do with what she does. Does this make sense? See how the story flows naturally? There's an up and down, with a problem in the middle, and then the solution, the positive at the end. Anyone would like to try this quickly? Just tell your regular story, but make sure you're using these words just for you to get the habit out of it, how you will craft the story and how you will write it. Who didn't speak? I don't see any raised hands. Anyone would like to go? You're here for a storyteller workshop, which means that you are ready to tell your story or you want to tell your story. And there's no right or wrong because we're all in the learning session. This took me years and I'm still learning how to craft stories and better stories. It's all practice. As I was saying on LinkedIn, storytelling is a skill and a skill needs to be honed and practiced again and again and again. Anyone?
Okay, yeah, I will try actually.
Yes, Muhammad. Yalla, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Muhammad. Actually, I will tell you about my story, how I started my career. I was working as a dentist.
Muhammad, make sure you
Yes.
follow once there was a. Make sure to follow the story spine. Once there was a dentist.
Okay. So I'm talking about myself, or I phrase it as I'm talking about someone else.
No, talk about yourself. You can say once
Okay,
there
so
was a dentist and the third person.
okay, once there was a dentist who was 30 years old. Every day he was struggling finding a new customers and paying his expenses, until one day he decided to shift his career. Because of that, he tried to work hard and connect with some people and trying to discover new opportunities or other careers, until finally he found a job as a medical representative. Since then, he's growing in his career as a medical representative. Then he promoted to a supervisor, and now he joined AKI as a key account manager, and he's successfully reached what he want, actually, more stable and a successful career.
So this
I don't
is
know
beautiful,
if
Muhammad. It's beautiful, Muhammad, because this is step one of writing your story. So once you put, like you did now, once you put all these layers, once there was a every day until one day, now you have to go back of the story that we discussed before. So now you add the how, the when, the why. Now you add the true details inside that makes this Muhammad story and not another dentist story.
Exactly.
So step one is the story spine that you just did beautifully. And step two, you go to your me illustration and you say, okay, how can this become Muhammad's story and not Mariana's story? Because everybody has a success story, but not Muhammad's success story. And then you ask yourself, I am telling the story, what for? I am telling the story to inspire them that there's hope, inspire them to work hard. And you put that message at the end. Ever since then, like I said, I didn't chase success or fame. Fame and success and money came to me because I chased knowledge, lessons. So it's all sprinkling. You're building your house. Remember the first activity you did, draw your house? A story is like a house, but the house needs to look like you and the story needs to sound like you. So you start with the spine and you start adding the small details. You give it that small flavor that makes it all Muhammad. Thank you, Muhammad, for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And this is what we have been talking about, the different types of leadership stories and why we need to be so aware of what is it that we are trying to achieve with our stories. Are we a newly hired leader? Are we new in a community, in a room? Are we trying to tell them about ourselves so they trust us, so they follow us? In that case, a story to build trust needs to be a vulnerable story. It needs to have emotions. It needs to open up. Like someone said at the beginning of this workshop, the 2 emails of the CEO, one of them invited us in. One of them opened up his heart and invited us to trust him and open up. So that CEO was building a trust. Maybe you want to tell a story to lead them into the future. You want them to believe in your vision. And in that story, you need to show them the destination and the positive outcomes. Or maybe you want a story to influence. And in that case, use specific actions. Be always aware. Storytelling is not it will become second nature the more we practice it. But as newbies, like when I started 5 years ago, it was all practice. I would write a story, I would test it, I would tell it, I would see the reactions it's created. How can I make it better? I would remove a detail from here, a detail from that. It's like walking. First we crawl, and then we fall, and then we stand up. And that might take a few months until we stand up on our feet. But once we have honed the skill of storytelling as a real storytellers, you will see magic happens. People will start repeating your stories. People will start coming to you for advice. People will echo your voice in rooms that you are not there, because they feel it's real, it's authentic, they can trust you, and you have their back to lead them. I have a lot of activities in this workshop. I thought we might be able, but if anyone wants to give it a try and see, I put a scenario here as a, you don't have to be the CEO, but maybe you were hired for a new job and you want the team to trust you, you want the management to trust you. I was hired a few years ago. I was hired a new job as a director, and I walk into the office. I was quite young then, and I walk to the office and I have a team of 10 people, and I was telling them, do this, do this, do that, do that. We need to achieve, we need to do, we need to sell, we need to show. And then nobody was doing what I was telling them, and I got so upset. I got really, really upset. I marched into the CEO's office and I said, why aren't they trusting me? These people are not doing what I'm telling them to do. And the CEO said, they don't trust you. And I said, why don't they trust me? I've been working for so many years. I've been working for huge companies. I've been delivering results at every job I had. They have to do what I tell them to do, because I am here to deliver. And he said, and I never forget this. And then the CEO said, trust is earned. So the trust is not about the resume I brought. Trust was not about everything I have achieved before, nothing. Trust in that moment for my team to follow me was for them to believe that I was capable of doing it, to show them and not to tell them. Telling is easy. I have it in one of the slides before. The stories we use, show them, show our team, show the people without us telling them that we are capable. We have the expertise, we have the knowledge, and we will guide them to the future. So the stories we use show us, show them, and that's how we earn trust, not by telling them, not by displaying our resumes and our successes. Questions? Okay. Any questions so far? I don't see any raised hands. As I said, if you want to become a storyteller, if you want to tell stories, if you want to use stories as leadership tools to inspire, to motivate, to engage, even to build your own personal brand, to get people to trust you, it's very important that your actions are consistent with your story. I'm sure you see this a lot in meeting rooms, on the LinkedIn posts, even in your community. Some people do tell great stories, but they don't live the story that they tell. So when, very simple example, when I say I drink Costa coffee, for example, I only drink Costa coffee, and if I am seen with a Starbucks coffee, this is a very silly example, but it's true. Actions lead. You have to be consistent with the stories that you are telling, with the values that you are communicating. You have to show them and not tell them. Commit yourself to telling the truth. A story is only effective if it's the truth. You can omit parts, but you can never add what is not true. You have, because when you're telling the truth, also people know, you can sense it. It's your body feels it. Somebody said that you have to own it. Now, take notes. You don't have your me illustration with you at all time, but you have your phone. How are you going to find your stories? I have over 1,000 notes on my phone. 500 of them made it into my book. The other 500 makes it into my stories, into my LinkedIn posts, into my speeches and everything I do. Whenever something happens with you, a conversation you had with your son, a conversation we had with the gentleman who helped you pull your grocery in a bag, every conversation you have that resonates with you, that is true to who you are, the message you want and the values, take notes, because one day those notes will become your stories. For example, I went to the gym the other day, and there was one parking spot that was at the end of the parking space. And as I was waiting in the queue to park my car, a lot of the cars did not want to take that last spot, and the parking was full. They kept on driving to find a parking spot that was closer to the door because they didn't want to walk. But I just wanted to park. So I took the last parking spot. I parked, I went to the gym, I did my training. And people were still roaming around the parking, trying to find a place to park. So this story can be used one day to talk about last one in, first one out, to talk about opportunities, to talk about not always being the first, whatever it is. But it made it to my notes because I think there's a lesson in every story. And I talk about my gym stories and I talk about my running stories. So it's relevant to who I am and how I want to represent myself to my audience. Practice, 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 practice. You write the story, but saying the story is different than writing the story. So you write the story, but practice it. You need to change a word here, a word there. When you practice it, I'm not saying you will say it as a script. No, because you have lived that story, even if you have practiced it. Like me, I just told you the story of like Ben, he told his story. It will come natural, but you have to practice to understand which details to remove, which words to use, which ending is better than the other acting. Watch, read, and listen. To become storytellers, we need to watch storytellers. We need to read their speeches. We need to listen to their stories. When I was writing my book, it took me 3 years to write my book. As I was writing, I was reading, I was learning how to write, I was learning how to read. My whole world was immersed in the world of writing, because in order to write, I had to write more. I had to study to write more. I had to read and I had to study how to learn. So in order to craft stories, we need to watch, we need to listen, we need to read, and we need to practice. And in bold there, go to a Toastmasters meeting. My entire storytelling journey started with a Toastmasters meeting. This is a safe environment where you can practice your storytelling skills, where you can tell a story, get feedback in a very safe space, and they will tell you how to make it better, how to move, which words to use and what not. I cannot stress the importance of Toastmasters meeting when we are trying to grow as storytellers. I see some activities, I think, in the chat. Is there any questions?
Yes. Are you able to see the chat box, Mariana?
Let me
I've
see.
sent you. Mr. Ben has sent it. I could read out the question for you. Miss Mariana has said it's great to show what you're doing. As a founder, I find it very challenging because every time I spearhead for change, for example, when we delivered sanitary pads to girls, I needed to post this on social space, but we received some negative feedback. How do we deal with this?
Ben, do you believe in what you're doing? Do you believe that your story is very important story to be told? Do you believe that your voice will make a difference? Do you believe that your story will make a difference and what you are doing will make a difference? People will always...
I do believe, yeah.
Yes, that's what matters. What matters is that you believe that your voice is true, your story is true, and your story matters. People will always have an opinion. Always. I tell this to my son every day. But what matters, it's what we think of ourselves, what we think of our story, and what we think our voice. And it all starts with us believing in our voice and believing in our stories. It took me 5 years until I believed in my story, because I thought the story I was telling as a mother who was suffering from motherhood, I thought it was only mine, because I couldn't see my story. People were not talking about the suffering of motherhood. Everyone was talking about the Instagram state of motherhood. And I kept on doubting myself, and I never shared my story because of the backlash I will get. But the minute I shared my story, I shared it truthfully, I shared it authentically, magic happened, because that's when mothers started coming out and saying, yes, I am that mother too. Yes, I have a story too. Yes, I have a voice too. So you believe in your story, you believe in your voice. People will always have an opinion, Ben. Did that answer your question? Don't change your story to suit the people who are not yours, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much.
Stay true to your story and your purpose and what you're trying to achieve in this world.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome, Ben. Another question?
Do we have any more questions?
So thank you, Yohani. I just read that you said many of us managed to visualize the whole presentation just by following your words, which goes to say how amazing you are at telling stories. Thank you. And I apologize again for not noticing that the presentation wasn't showing. These are some of the books that helped me become a better storytelling. Of course, my book is a collection of all the stories that I told about motherhood, but I suggest you read. For example, I read the Nike founder story. It's a story that I resonate with as a runner. I use Nike shoes, so I wanted to know who was the person behind the brand. Talk Like TED, I cannot emphasize how important this book is. I have it with me at all times. The book gives very visual examples of how to use the story, the power of story, and how to craft it and to hone it. And Squirrel Ink is actually a case study of how storytelling was used in a fictional world to lead change, to inspire, to drive, and to motivate people. And some of the speeches, of course, you can read to read them, study them, see which one resonates with you, which one is close to your tone of voice, which one is closer to what you can use. And you can practice with that. You can follow that. I'm not saying you copy it, but you get inspired by it. I always say there's no need to invent the wheel. So much great work has been done. We can just add to it, learn from it and add to it. But the most important thing is practice. Now that you know why stories are important as leaders, because leaders, we don't lead by saying what they have to do, what the team has to do. We lead by showing, by inspiring. And how do we show? How do we inspire? By telling stories, because stories light up the brain of our team, of the listeners. Stories make them walk in our shoe, make them see that we've been there, we've done that, we're real, we are authentic, without telling them what to do. We're just creating visuals in their head. And we talked about where to find those stories, not on Google. Please do not Google. Please do not use ChatGPT to write your stories. You have rich experiences, culture, stories, childhood, a family. You have so much. All the stories are within you. If you are like me and you're quite active on LinkedIn, lately every post on LinkedIn sounds the same. You don't want to sound like, for example, you don't want to sound like Muhammad, you don't want to sound like me, you don't want to sound like Upasana. You want to sound like you want to sound like Ben. You can use ChatGPT to correct your grammar if you want to, but stories come from within you. And we finally covered how we write our stories. Any questions? Something that is not clear? I will go back to my slides if you see something that is there that you haven't seen when I was talking, maybe you would like to ask a question on something specific that you weren't seeing.
I think since we have a time crunch, if anybody has any questions, you could always send it via email. And I think since we are at almost 1 o'clock, we could wind up the session. So thank you all for your time, interesting questions, enthusiasm, and participation in our session. And thank you, Ms. Mariana, for igniting us all by sharing your knowledge and experience with us. It was a refreshing session indeed. Dear learners, your suggestions and comments matter to us. So please do let us know your thoughts and suggestions for improvements so we can continue to improve and give you the best service. After the session, you will receive a feedback form, which will only take 3 to 5 minutes to complete. If you have opted for the certificate, you will receive your e-certificate within the day, which you can publish on LinkedIn as well. So see you again with another insightful WFB Ignite session. Until we meet again, thank you very much. Stay ahead, stay connected with Westward for Business.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mariana.
Thank you, everyone. Please write your stories and tag me. I would like to read all your stories on LinkedIn. Maybe.
Absolutely.
Online. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alpha, you are here. Maka, nani siya nasa so sa bugla ng sulan so